So other lies were created that don't make sense to me at all. I don't know where they've come from. I am not now, nor have I ever been, mentally ill, confused about my sexuality, a manipulative, toxic individual, someone who parties to excess, secretly married, infected with an STD, on drugs or heavily medicated, abusive to children, or terminally ill. But members of a community literally believed, insinuated, and promoted this. The lies, slander, and defamation, plus my unwillingness to play their game or respond in kind, resulted in a very pointed rejection by many local organizations and people. I had to remind myself often that many of them were also victims of the lies they were being told. Members of this control group also wanted people to believe I was doing or had done witchcraft or black magic on them, but in reality it was the other way around. And this was a tactic they often used, deflecting and shifting blame by accusing me of doing exactly what they were doing. But I had to forgive those who went along with the lies about me and who literally took steps to enforce and reinforce them within a community. I had to remind myself they didn't understand the extent of what they were doing, not only to me, just by lying, but to themselves. More than all of this, I had to forgive myself for allowing it to happen to begin with, and this is part of what's helped me to keep moving forward. As this group persisted in directing or casting their rituals at me, typically following the moon cycles and solstices, I persisted in defending myself against them. It became very clear they wanted me to stop being productive, to stop being seen, to stop creating, and really to just stop being myself, which I think they wanted most of all because anything I seemed to do, especially of a creative nature, didn't fit the story they were promoting. So it was personal somehow, I guess. I don't know. But it was also very likely something had been done with my name falsely attached to it that constituted fraud. The only thing I have left to give those who use the kind of dark manipulative tactics they used is peace. I can only imagine, but money and status also seem to be factors, which I think is how they see power. With regard to me, however, it was about control. And I disagreed with their need to control me, my life, and or my identity. I accepted the situation and I didn't seek revenge because I know better. I took whatever protective actions I could, then I just gave it to God. I was also learning about spiritual and mental self-care and ways to fight through, counteract, and reverse the heaviest of the spell work and spiritual warfare. What I experienced happens more often than you might think. It varies in severity and by degree. My case seemed extreme due to what appears to be a large number of people, organizations, and practitioners who were all in collusion at some point or other. Many of these people I don't know. This type of situation is hard to prove in a court of law unless laws have been broken. And laws have been broken. In my writings on Substack, I've hinted increasingly about a particular situation I've experienced that has involved forms of black magic, manipulation, defamation, corruption, fraud, and theft. I'm aware of how it may sound to some, but this doesn't stop it from being true. Over the last 3 years, I've listened or spoken to people, typically online, who have experienced almost identical situations down to the symptoms and the effects. And this has been the most validating part of this leg of my journey. Local professionals, the corporation, and business owners were involved in my smear campaign, as well as members of a church, a Masonic Brotherhood, an Eastern Stars women's group, Luciferians, and other alternative religious groups, a cult and a coven. People were bribed, promised gifts or favors. They were often lied to horribly in order for my accusers to get sympathy and enlist help. The control group's methods also included hiring spiritual practitioners in both the United States and overseas, some of whom contacted me after the spell work backfired or returned to them. I am proof that God is real. And because I am innocent of the lies and never did anything to these people, at least not intentionally, and certainly not to merit this, I eventually grew stronger with every attack they sent. Whatever they were trying to project onto me started affecting me less and less. When they realized this, their tactics changed. Though they were all still using spell work, they started to focus more on my day-to-day life. We started having issues with things in the house. So one thing would stop working, malfunction, or break down, and we'd have it repaired. Then another thing would stop working, malfunction, or break down, and this included our cars. This went on for weeks, possibly a little over a month before we got a break. My mother's house sits on a little over an acre, surrounded by birch trees, so I suspected little gifts were likely buried somewhere on her property. And by little gifts, I'm referring to items that or materials that could be used to either cast spell work or cause bad luck. Things in the house would be misplaced or outright disappear. You know how it is when you can't find something, you're positive you just saw it, or you put it in a particular place. I've learned that sometimes this isn't you, it's actually a trickster spirit. But it could also have been the handyman and his mechanic employee my mother hired to fix her SUV. Among those things that disappeared were my birth certificate. I also lost the only portfolio of my traditional artwork I'd done over the years, so they were now using more hands-on methods. The spell work being projected at me sometimes lessened or paused because I guess they have to sleep at some point, but it never really stopped. It was coming from more than one individual. The mission objective seemed to be to cause me as many stressful situations and distractions as they possibly could, and essentially hinder me on all fronts. In the past 4 years alone, I've had property damaged and or stolen. I've been inexplicably ill after eating or drinking with people or at functions. I've had my mail stolen or redirected repeatedly and had to file numerous complaints with USPS and finally the USOIG. As of the date of this recording, I receive mail sporadically. On a side note, the fact that the local USPS where I live in the last 2 years has continuously been holding hiring events is a direct result, an effect of what some of their workers have done illegally and not solely because they have the poorest management in the country.